The Midnight Visitor. The Perseid meteor shower wasn't supposed to peak for another week, but Dr. Elena Martinez knew what she was seeing wasn't natural. Through her observatory's telescope, she tracked the object's descent, too controlled, too precise to be space debris. After 15 years at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, she could tell the difference between a falling rock and something else entirely. The object crashed 3 miles from her mountain observatory in the Colorado Rockies. The impact sent a shockwave that rattled her windows and scattered her research papers across the floor. Elena's hands trembled as she grabbed her emergency med kit and a flashlight. She'd left NASA and civilization behind after the incident that had cost her her career and reputation, but old habits died hard. Her boots crunched through fresh snow as she followed the trail of disturbed trees and scorched earth. The crash site glowed with an ethereal blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Steam rose from melted snow around a sleek vessel about the size of a small car, its surface rippling like liquid mercury. "Hello?" Elena called out, her breath visible in the frigid air. "Is anyone there?" A panel in the vessel's side dissolved, revealing a figure that stumbled out and collapsed into the snow. Elena rushed forward, medical training overriding caution. The being was humanoid but clearly alien, tall and willowy with iridescent skin that shifted colors like the northern lights. Its eyes, when they fluttered open, were completely silver with no pupils. "Help," it whispered in perfect English, reaching out with a 6-fingered hand. "They're coming." Elena caught the alien as it lost consciousness. Its skin was ice-cold, but she could feel a rapid pulse beneath the surface. Without hesitation, she lifted the surprisingly light body and began the difficult trek back to her observatory. She'd left Earth's space program to escape the politics and conspiracies, but now space had quite literally crashed into her backyard. Inside her observatory's living quarters, Elena laid the alien on her couch and began checking vital signs. The being's anatomy was similar enough to human that she could tell it was in distress: rapid shallow breathing, erratic pulse, and dropping body temperature. She wrapped it in thermal blankets and activated chemical heat packs. As she worked, the alien's skin gradually shifted from its original iridescent sheen to a more human-like tone, as if attempting to blend in. Its features softened and changed subtly until it could have passed for human at first glance, if an unusually beautiful one. The alien's eyes snapped open. "The beacon," it gasped, trying to sit up. "I must activate the beacon." "Hey, take it easy," Elena said, gently restraining it. "You're injured." "I'm Dr. Elena Martinez. I'm here to help." The alien focused on her face, silver eyes swirling like quicksilver. "I am Kyra. My people are the Astrians. And if I don't activate the beacon soon, Dr. Martinez, your entire planet will die." Elena's scientific mind raced with questions, but her medical training kept her focused on the immediate situation. "You're hypothermic and possibly in shock. Whatever danger we're in, you won't help anyone if you don't stabilize first." Kyra relaxed slightly, though tension still radiated from their form. "You are correct. But time is short. The flare approaches." "What flare?" Elena asked, checking Kyra's pulse again. It was steadying. "A solar ejection of unprecedented magnitude," Kyra said. "Your sun will unleash destruction that will strip away your atmosphere, boil your oceans. We detected it too late to stop it. But perhaps together we can save your world." Elena's hand froze on Kyra's wrist. She'd spent her career studying solar phenomena, including the devastating flares that had earned her ridicule from the scientific community when she warned about their potential danger. "How long do we have?" 30 days, Kyra said. "Unless..." A violent tremor racked their body, cutting off whatever they were about to say. Their skin flickered between human-like and iridescent as if they were losing control of their camouflage ability. "Rest," Elena insisted. "We'll figure this out together, but first you need to heal." As Kyra drifted into an uneasy sleep, Elena stood at her window, staring at the stars. She'd come to these mountains to escape her past, but now the future of humanity might depend on whether she could face it again. The crashed ship still glowed in the distance, a beacon of both hope and warning. She pulled out her old satellite phone, the one she'd sworn she'd never use again, and punched in a number she'd memorized years ago. It rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. "This is Director Reynolds." Elena took a deep breath. "James, it's Elena. Remember when I warned you about the solar flare scenario? Well, we need to talk. Now." The silence on the other end stretched for several seconds before he replied, "I'll be there in 4 hours." The line went dead. Elena looked back at her sleeping visitor. After 15 years of isolation, she was about to be thrust back into the very world she'd fled. But this time, she wasn't just fighting to be heard, she was fighting to save everything. Outside, more light streaked across the sky. But these weren't meteors. They were ships. And Elena had a sinking feeling they weren't all as friendly as Kyra. The night was about to get much longer. Signal from the stars. Director James Reynolds arrived at Elena's observatory exactly 4 hours after her call, just as the first rays of dawn painted the snow-covered peaks in shades of pink and gold. He hadn't changed much in 15 years, still the same military posture, the same calculating gray eyes, though his hair had gone completely white. 2 black SUVs accompanied his helicopter, disgorging teams of technicians who immediately began setting up equipment around the crash site. "You look well, Elena," he said, studying her face. "Mountain air agrees with you." "Skip the small talk, James," Elena replied, leading him inside. "We have bigger problems." She'd moved Kyra to her bedroom, away from the windows. The alien was awake now, sitting cross-legged on the bed with their skin shifting between camouflage and natural states like a flickering light bulb. They looked up as Elena and James entered. James stopped dead in his tracks. "My God." "Director Reynolds," Kyra said, inclining their head. "Your species' response time is impressive." "They're called Austrians," Elena explained, watching James's face carefully. "And they're here to warn us about a solar flare that could end life on Earth." James's expression remained neutral, but Elena knew him well enough to spot the tension in his jaw. "Like the one you predicted in 2010? "Worse," Kyra interjected. "The event Dr. Martinez predicted was a Category X-28. This will be approximately X-150. It will strip your atmosphere like paper in a flame." James pulled out his phone and began typing rapidly. "How long?" 29 days, 16 hours, and, Kyra winced, pressing a hand to their temple. "Apologies. The neural translation matrix is still adapting to your language." Elena moved to check Kyra's vital signs again, but the alien waved her away. "I am recovering. But we must act quickly. The beacon must be activated." "What beacon?" James demanded. "A quantum resonance device," Kyra explained. "It will allow us to communicate with the Austrian fleet and coordinate the construction of a planetary shield." "But..." They hesitated, looking at Elena. "It requires significant power. More than your current technology can safely provide." "How much power?" Elena asked. "Approximately the output of 3 of your nuclear power plants, channeled simultaneously through a specific frequency modulation." James swore under his breath. "That's impossible. The grid couldn't handle it." "It would work," Elena said quietly, "if we used the Gibraltar Array." The room went silent. The Gibraltar Array had been Elena's masterpiece, a revolutionary power distribution system that could theoretically channel massive amounts of energy with perfect efficiency. But the project had been shut down after an accident killed 3 people, leading to her resignation and self-imposed exile. "The array was dismantled," James said flatly. "No," Elena replied, meeting his gaze. "It wasn't. You mothballed it because you couldn't figure out how to make it work without me. Before James could respond, alarms began blaring from the equipment outside. One of his technicians burst through the door. "Sir, we're detecting multiple objects entering the atmosphere. Same signature as the first craft, but larger." Kyra's skin rippled with patterns of dark blue, fear, Elena realized. "The Shadowers. They found us." "The what?" James demanded. "A faction that believes humanity should not be warned," Kyra explained hurriedly. "They think your species is too dangerous to save. Too warlike. They will destroy any chance of activation the beacon." Elena watched as military helicopters began appearing on the horizon, drawn by the new contacts. "James, we need to move. Now." He was already on his phone. "This is Reynolds. Authorization Alpha 7 Delta. I need the Gibraltar facility reactivated. Full power." Elena started gathering essential equipment. "The array won't work without the calibration sequences. Which are in my head. That's why you're coming with us," James replied, helping Kyra to their feet. "Both of you." The building shook as something massive passed overhead. Through the windows, Elena saw a ship 3 times the size of Kyra's, its surface a threatening dark metal that seemed to absorb light. "The Shadowers will not stop," Kyra warned as they hurried toward the helicopters. "They believe they are protecting the galaxy from humanity's eventual expansion into space." "Well," Elena said, helping Kyra aboard while anti-aircraft batteries began firing at the alien ships, "they're about to learn something about humanity. We don't like being told what we can't do." As their helicopter lifted off, Elena watched her peaceful mountain sanctuary disappear behind them. The Gibraltar array lay 2,000 miles away in the Strait of Gibraltar, built into the rock of the ancient Pillars of Hercules. If they could reach it, if she could remember every detail of the calibration sequence, if the array still worked after 15 years of neglect, maybe they had a chance. The Shadower ships followed, their weapons turning the landscape below into chaos. But Elena smiled grimly. She'd spent 15 years running from her past. Now it was time to face it, not just to save her own reputation, but to save every living thing on Earth. "James," she said, pulling out her old notebook filled with equations, "tell me the array's core is still intact." "It is," he replied. "Everything's exactly as you left it." "Good," she said, as Kyra looked over her shoulder at the complex mathematical formulas. "Because we're about to make history. Again. Let's just hope we survive it this time." The helicopter banked hard to avoid enemy fire, and Elena began writing new equations, combining her knowledge with Kyra's advanced understanding of quantum mechanics. Behind them, more Shadower ships appeared in the sky like gathering storm clouds. The race to save humanity had begun. Shadows over Gibraltar. The Gibraltar facility emerged from the morning mist like a sleeping giant. Massive pylons of weathered steel and concrete rose from both the European and African sides of the strait, connected by a web of power lines that sparkled with the first rays of dawn. Elena pressed her hand against the helicopter's window, her throat tight. 15 years of nightmares about this place, and now it was humanity's last hope. "The facility's been in standby mode," James explained as their helicopter approached the European pylon. "Minimal staff, minimal power draw. We've had to," he was cut off by the sudden wail of alarms. "Multiple bogies incoming," the pilot shouted. Shadower ships, closing fast. Through the clouds came 3 dark shapes, their surfaces rippling like oil on water. Energy weapons flashed, forcing their helicopter into a steep dive. Elena grabbed Kyra as the alien slipped from their seat, their skin flickering rapidly between colors. "The beacon components," Kyra gasped, clutching a silver case to their chest. "They must not be damaged." The helicopter landed hard on the facility's main platform. James was already barking orders into his radio as they sprinted for the entrance. Behind them, the sky erupted in chaos as Earth's military forces engaged the Shadower ships. The array's core is 5 levels down, Elena said as they rushed through abandoned corridors. But we'll need to reactivate the stabilization matrix from the control room first. 28 days until the solar flare, Kyra reminded them, their silver eyes reflecting the emergency lights. But the beacon must be activated within 12 hours. After that, there will not be sufficient time to construct the planetary shield. They reached the control room to find it already humming with activity. James's teams had been working through the night, bringing old systems back online. Screens flickered to life, displaying the complex web of power connections that made up the array. Elena sat at the main console, her fingers hovering over familiar controls. The calibration sequence is going to take at least 4 hours. And that's assuming everything still works. The facility shook as something exploded above. James's radio crackled. "Sir, they're targeting the power lines. We can't hold them off much longer." "We need a distraction," James said, pulling out his phone. "Something to keep them occupied while we power up." "Wait," Kyra said, their voice urgent. "There is something you should know about the Shadowers. About why they truly fear humanity." Another explosion rocked the facility. Elena's hands flew across the keyboard, initiating startup sequences she'd hoped never to use again. "Kind of busy here, Kyra." "Your Gibraltar array," Kyra continued, "it's not just a power distribution system. The principles it operates on, the quantum frequency modulation, the energy patterns, they're the foundation of interstellar travel." Elena's fingers froze on the keys. "What?" "That's why the Shadowers are so determined to stop us." "The accident 15 years ago?" "It wasn't an accident. The array didn't fail. It worked too well. It generated a quantum signature that could be detected across the galaxy. That's how we found you." James drew his weapon as alarms blared throughout the facility. "You knew about this?" "All along. My people have been watching humanity for centuries," Kyra said, their skin rippling with patterns of deep green, sincerity, Elena had learned. "We saw your potential. Your drive to explore, to understand, to push boundaries. The Shadowers saw only the violence in your history. But we saw hope." Elena's mind raced. The equations she'd spent years perfecting, the theories that had been dismissed as impossible, they'd been on the verge of something far bigger than clean energy. The array wasn't distributing power, she whispered. It was warping space-time. The facility shook again, more violently this time. Through the control room's reinforced windows, they could see Shadower ships systematically destroying the power lines connecting the pylons. Each explosion sent cascading power failures through their systems. "We don't have time to debate this," James snapped. "Elena, can you get it running or not?" Elena turned back to the console, her fingers flying with renewed purpose. "Better than that. I can give them exactly what they're afraid of." She pulled up the original calibration sequence, the one that had caused the accident, and began modifying it. "What are you doing?" Kyra asked, leaning over her shoulder. "They want to stop us from reaching the stars." Elena said, a fierce grin spreading across her face. "Let's show them we're already there. James, I need every bit of power you can give me. Kyra, get ready with that beacon. We're not just going to call your fleet, we're going to open the door for them." The array hummed to life, power building in its ancient circuits. Outside, the Shadower ships suddenly broke off their attack, as if sensing what was coming. But it was too late. "Calibration sequence completed," Elena announced. "Core stabilization at maximum. James, give me everything." The facility's lights dimmed as power was diverted to the array. Elena's modified sequence began running, the equations she'd dreamed of for 15 years finally finding their true purpose. Above the strait, the air itself seemed to shimmer and bend. "Energy readings are off the scale," one of the technicians reported. Whatever you're doing, it's working. Kyra's beacon device began to pulse with brilliant light. The quantum frequency is perfect. The signal will reach across the galaxy. But Elena wasn't done. As the array reached full power, she initiated the final sequence, the one that had haunted her nightmares for 15 years. This time, though, she understood what she was really doing. The sky above Gibraltar split open like a blooming flower, revealing the swirling depths of spacetime itself. Through that impossible window, they could see ships approaching, not shadower vessels, but the gleaming fleet of the Astrians, answering humanity's first call to the stars. Now, Elena said softly, we show them what humanity can really do. Echoes of tomorrow. The portal above Gibraltar pulsed with impossible colors as the Astrian fleet emerged. Their ships were everything the shadower vessels weren't, bright, crystalline structures that moved with fluid grace, trailing streams of light like cosmic jellyfish. But Elena barely had time to marvel at the sight before the facility's systems began screaming warnings. Power fluctuations in the core, she shouted, fingers racing across the console. The array wasn't designed to maintain a stable portal this size. The shadowers are regrouping, James reported, watching radar displays fill with hostile signatures. They're calling in reinforcements. Kyra pressed their hands against the control room window, their skin rippling with patterns Elena had never seen before, complex swirls of gold and silver that seemed to mirror the portal above. The Astrian High Command is requesting permission to enter Earth's atmosphere. They bring the shield technology, but... But what? Elena demanded, still fighting to stabilize the array. But landing such a large fleet could be seen as an act of invasion, Kyra finished. The Shadowers would be proven right about humanity being too dangerous to trust with interstellar technology. James's radio crackled with urgent messages as military commanders worldwide demanded explanations for the massive alien fleet suddenly appearing above Gibraltar. The portal was visible from 3 continents, impossible to hide or deny. Humanity's first contact was happening in the most public and chaotic way possible. We don't have a choice, Elena said, watching power readings spike dangerously. The array can't maintain the portal much longer. Either they land now, or... The decision was made for them. The Shadowers launched a massive assault, their weapons fire causing the portal to fluctuate wildly. The Astrian fleet began defensive maneuvers, but they were caught in an impossible position, half in normal space, half still emerging from the portal. Array stability at 12%, one of the technicians shouted. Core temperature critical. Elena felt the same cold certainty she'd experienced 15 years ago, when everything had gone wrong the first time. But now she understood what she was really dealing with. Kyra, I need you to tell me exactly how your ships navigate through quantum space. The alien's silver eyes widened. The calculations would take hours to explain. Not the math, Elena interrupted. The principle. In simple terms. Please. They create a resonance pattern, Kyra said. A harmonic frequency that allows them to slip between the layers of spacetime. Elena's hands flew across the keyboard. Like a tuning fork. Hit the right note, and everything vibrates in sympathy. She pulled up the array's original designs, her designs, and began making rapid modifications. James, I need power diverted from every military base, every power plant within 1,000 miles. All of it, right now. That could black out half of Europe, he protested. Better than losing the whole planet, Elena shot back. Above them, the battle between Shadowers and Astrians lit up the sky like a new sun. The portal flickered dangerously, its edges beginning to unravel. James made the call. Across southern Europe and northern Africa, cities went dark as their power was redirected to Gibraltar. Elena's modifications began feeding new frequencies into the array's core, building complex harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. Kyra, she said, I need you to transmit these frequencies to your fleet. Tell them to synchronize their quantum drives. Understanding dawned in the alien's silver eyes. You're going to create a resonance cascade. Elena nodded grimly. The Shadowers are so afraid of humanity reaching the stars. Let's show them we can do more than that. We can make the stars reach back. The Astrian ships began to pulse with the same frequency as the array. The portal's instability suddenly reversed, its chaotic fluctuations resolving into perfect geometric patterns. The Shadower ships closest to it found themselves caught in the quantum harmonics, their sophisticated technology turned against them. It's working! Kyra exclaimed. The resonance is creating a stable quantum field across the entire strait. Elena watched as her displays filled with patterns she'd only theorized about in her years of isolation. The array wasn't just distributing power anymore, it was conducting a symphony of quantum frequencies, with the Astrian fleet acting as an amplifier. The Shadower ships began to retreat, their weapons useless against the expanding field of stable quantum space. But there was a cost. Smoke began rising from the array's conduits as they channeled energies they were never designed to handle. The concrete of the facility itself groaned under quantum stresses that shouldn't exist in normal space. Core temperature beyond critical, a technician shouted. We're losing containment. Just a little longer, Elena muttered, watching the Astrian fleet complete their emergence. The last ship had barely cleared the portal when the array's core gave out in a spectacular cascade of blown circuits and electrical fires. The portal collapsed with a thunderclap that shattered windows for miles around. But it didn't matter anymore. The Astrian fleet hung in Earth's sky, a testament to humanity's first steps into a larger universe. The remaining Shadower ships fled, their worst fears about human ingenuity proven true in the most dramatic way possible. As emergency systems fought to contain the damage to the facility, Elena felt Kyra's hand on her shoulder. The alien's skin had settled into a calm blue shade. You didn't just save Earth today, Kyra said softly. You proved why humanity deserves to be among the stars. The Shadowers feared you would change the galaxy. They were right, but not in the way they thought. Elena looked at the smoldering remains of her life's work, then up at the fleet that would help save her world. Change isn't always something to fear, she said. Sometimes it's exactly what we need. James approached, looking exhausted but determined. The military's standing down, but we're going to have a lot of explaining to do. The whole world saw what happened here. Good, Elena replied. Because the whole world needs to know what's coming next. We have 27 days to build a planetary shield, and now we have the help we need to do it. She turned to Kyra. I hope your people are ready for some intense collaboration. The alien skin rippled with patterns of bright optimism. We've been ready for centuries. The question is humanity ready? Elena looked at the chaos they'd caused, the damaged facility, the darkened cities, the fleet of alien ships filling the sky, and smiled. I think we just proved we are. A new dawn. 27 days can feel like an eternity or pass in the blink of an eye. For Elena Martinez, it was both. The Gibraltar incident had changed everything, not just the facility or her life, but the entire world. Humanity had awoken to find itself part of a larger cosmic community, for better or worse. The Astrian ships now hung in orbit like artificial stars, visible from every corner of the globe. Teams of human and alien scientists worked around the clock, combining technologies and knowledge in ways never before imagined. The damaged Gibraltar array had become the heart of the operation, its quantum resonance technology proving essential to the shield's construction. The emitter network is at 70% capacity, Elena reported, studying the holographic display Kyra had helped install in the rebuilt control room. The southern hemisphere grid is still showing some synchronization issues. The Australian node came online an hour ago, James added, looking considerably grayer than he had a month ago. That should help stabilize the coverage. Kyra's skin shimmered with cautious optimism as they manipulated the hologram, their movements more confident after weeks of working alongside humans. The shield matrix is reaching critical density. But the Shadowers will not allow us to complete it without a fight. They'd been quiet lately, too quiet. Their initial retreat had given Earth precious time to prepare, but everyone knew they would return. The question was when, and in what force. 3 days until the solar flare, Elena said, rubbing her tired eyes. We'll need at least 36 hours to power up the shield once the network is complete. That doesn't leave much room for error. The facility hummed with activity as human and Astrian technology worked in harmony. The quantum principles Elena had stumbled upon 15 years ago had proven to be the key to everything, not just power distribution or space travel, but the very shield that would save Earth. The universe, it seemed, ran on resonance patterns, on harmonies that transcended species and space itself. The alarm came without warning. Every screen in the facility suddenly blazed red as sensors detected massive quantum disturbances in near-Earth orbit. Multiple Shadower vessels emerging from hyperspace. James shouted. Biggest fleet we've seen yet. They're targeting the emitter network. Elena watched in horror as the orbital grid they'd spent weeks building began to fall apart under concentrated enemy fire. The Astrian defense fleet responded immediately, but they were outnumbered 3-1. We need more time, Kyra said, their skin darkening with worry. Without full coverage, the shield will fail when the flare hits. Elena stared at the battle raging above their heads, her mind racing. The array hummed beside her, its quantum core rebuilt but different now, a hybrid of human ingenuity and Astrian knowledge. An idea began to form. What if we don't need the entire network, she asked slowly. What if we could create a resonance cascade like before, but on a global scale? Kyra's silver eyes widened. The power requirements would be massive, yes, Elena finished. But we've got every power plant on Earth feeding into the array now. And we've got something we didn't have before. She pointed to the Astrian ships, their quantum drives glowing as they fought. We've got hundreds of auxiliary power sources in orbit. You want to use the battle itself as a power source, James said, understanding dawning. The energy discharge from their weapons, their drives. All of it, Elena confirmed. Every joule of energy they're throwing around up there. The array can capture it, amplify it through quantum resonance, and feed it into the shield matrix. She turned to Kyra. But I'll need your fleet to modify their drive frequencies on the fly. Can they do it? The alien's skin rippled with determination. They can. But the Shadowers will realize what we're doing. They'll throw everything they have at us. Good, Elena said grimly. The more energy they expend trying to stop us, the stronger the shield will become. James was already coordinating with military commands worldwide. The plan spread quickly, every nation that could still generate power would channel it to Gibraltar. Every weapon that could reach orbit would fire on the Shadower fleet, not to destroy but to create more energy for the array to capture. The battle above intensified as the Shadowers realized what was happening. Their weapons' fire increased exponentially, trying to overwhelm the array's ability to capture and convert the energy. But with each attack, the quantum resonance grew stronger, the shield matrix more stable. Elena's fingers flew across the controls, conducting an orchestra of energy in quantum harmonics. The array's core temperature rose steadily, but the Astrian modifications held. Above them, the sky itself began to shimmer as the planetary shield took shape, fed by the very forces trying to destroy it. Shield coverage at 40%. Kyra announced. 60%, 80%. The Shadower fleet launched its final assault, a desperate attempt to break through before the shield could fully form. The array groaned under the strain of channeling so much power, but Elena had built it well. The quantum harmonics held, transforming destruction into protection. Shield coverage at 95%, Kyra reported, their voice tight with tension. The solar flare will reach Earth in 72 minutes. The Shadower fleet suddenly broke off their attack, their ships retreating in perfect formation. But Elena barely noticed. All her attention was focused on the final calibration sequence, balancing the quantum resonance patterns across the globe. Shield coverage at 100%, Kyra announced just as the first rays of the solar flare became visible to Earth's orbital sensors. Quantum matrix stable. We did it. The flare struck with the force of 1,000 nuclear bombs, but the shield held. From the ground, it looked like the greatest aurora in human history, sheets of light dancing across the sky as unprecedented amounts of energy were caught and channeled harmlessly around the planet. In the aftermath, as the shield continued its protective dance above them, Elena stood with Kyra and James on the Gibraltar facility's observation deck. The Shadower fleet had vanished completely, but the Astrian ships remained, their presence now a familiar sight in Earth's sky. "They'll be back," James said, ever the pragmatist. "The Shadowers, I mean." "Perhaps," Kyra replied, their skin shimmering with complex patterns of hope and determination. "But they will find a different humanity waiting for them. You've proven yourselves ready for the stars." Elena watched as teams of humans and Astrians continued their work below, no longer separated by fear or mistrust. The Gibraltar Array had become more than a power station or a gateway to the stars, it was a symbol of what could be achieved when different species worked together, when fear was overcome by hope and determination. "We were never meant to face the universe alone," she said softly. "Maybe that's what the Array was trying to tell us 15 years ago. It wasn't an accident, it was an invitation." Above them, the shield rippled with quantum energy, protecting Earth while simultaneously announcing its presence to the galaxy. Humanity had not only survived its trial by fire but had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever the cosmos had in store. The stars had never seemed closer.